Hi, this is Greg Beckett, Motivational Hypnotist, and we're here for another episode of Time to Get Unstuck. And I'm very excited and I feel kind of giddy and I don't know why. Time to Get Unstuck is about moving forward, making changes. And I have Sandra Grace here to help us with our word, and I'll explain all of that in a second. But first, I want to talk about Hypnothoughts Live 2019. That's our sponsor. And I think, Sandra, you haven't been to Hypnothoughts.
This is my first time I get to go and speak at Hypnothoughts Live and meet everyone and learn, and I'm very excited.
But you know some other of us, your colleagues that have gone before.
Many. I've heard wonderful things for years, and I'm so excited to finally be there myself. It's perfect.
And you're teaching, right? You're teaching like an hour or 2 hour? What are you?
Teaching an hour. I'll be teaching an hour about hypnosis and brain surgery.
Yeah, and I'm teaching one day, full spectrum hypnosis, learning, growing to feel comfortable with LGBTQ plus clients, but it's actually about better rapport with anybody and with ourselves. And then I'm teaching a 1 hour on that too, so it's a pre-conference of 1 hour. But Hypnothoughts Live is giving us that opportunity to come together as a community to learn more and to grow and change and branch out and make new friends with the same interests, or even new people have come that I've met that have never been, that aren't even hypnotists, that learn something new to help them move forward. So it's actually kind of cool thing. And it's in August in Las Vegas. And so I think you can click down below and put in Hypnothoughts or Hypnothoughts HTL 2019 and check it out. So now to move on with the show, thank you, Hypno 24/7 Network, for letting me have this show, first of all. The premise is that change, as I have changed and grown over the years, and I continue to do so, there's these main words that come up for myself and with clients and friends a lot. And so I wanted to take a word with each guest that I have, and we really kind of mull it around and have a conversation. And today I have Sandra Grace, who I'm excited to have here. She's in New Hampshire. She's here's my stuff here, but I know in my head, she's a speaker, she's a corporate trainer, she's a coach, she is a hypnotist. She uses the tools of hypnosis within encompassing all of that. I mean, and for the people that don't know a lot about hypnosis and hypnotists, someone could be a therapist and use hypnosis. Someone could be a coach and use hypnosis. It is a tool to move forward and to help people go through barriers. So Sandra Grace is here, and the word that we're talking about today is faith. And I want to say, when we talk about faith, and then I'm going to throw it to her, I promise I won't keep talking. When we talk about faith, everybody has their own perspective on faith. And that's where I'm going to throw it to you, Sandra. Hi, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Such an honor. It's going to be so fun to spend some time chatting about this. It's such an important part of all of our experience here on Earth School, and yet people have a tendency to kind of shy away from this topic. And so it's really great that you asked me to come and chat with you today, but I'm so excited about the particular topic. We chat about a lot of cool things, but this one's going to be really, I think, special, because there's times when this becomes taboo, when actually it's so essential for people to really feel comfortable understanding and talking about this part of themselves. And so what an honor to be chosen for this term.
So you've already started on this because you said that people find this subject taboo. Do you want to elaborate why, or what your sense is why people think it's taboo, or why you even think it's taboo for some people?
Well, I think what happened is, so I do a lot of things, I do keynote speaking and I do corporate training, I do all these things. But one of the things that I've learned in the past few years is when I work with people, whether it be clients or whether it be with groups, I only take an integrative approach to the work that I do now. I will not work with people who only want to work on one little aspect of themselves, because what I'm finding is that if we want to make lasting and ongoing change in our life, if we really want to get some leverage to get unstuck to move forward, it requires that we take an integrative approach. And so for me, that means we look a little bit about physical structural. So I have a background in anatomy and physiology, and I train, massage therapists and things like that. But, if we don't have enough water, enough sleep, enough nutrition, if we don't have enough movement in our life, all the other things that we're going to teach them aren't really going to, help them move forward, because they're always going to be trying to replenish those areas of lack for themselves.
Right.
And then when we try and do the mental emotional work that we do as a hypnotist or as a coach or that sort of thing, we have to teach them the basics of like, you control your mind controls your body, you know, some of those basic functions about like, if you feel a particular way and it seems as though you can't control that, the truth is it was the thought that fired off the chemicals that created the feeling, right? And so everybody's pretty good with those things when I would talk about those, whether it be in a corporate wellness program or whether it be one-on-one with the client. But then I would say, okay, in order for us to proceed, I also have to know your spiritual truth. I need to know what is it that always is, always was, and will always be. You know, what is it that you know that you know that you know? And I know that there's a lot of, you know, hypnotists, there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of folks that feel like that's not really appropriate for them to discuss in their sessions, where I take the opposite approach. I absolutely would not work with someone unless I had a firm understanding of their truth. It's not to impress a particular idea or belief upon people, it's to make sure that I know their foundation, because whatever we do, if it's incongruent with that, and you know this as well or probably better than I do, is that if it's incongruent with their value system and their truth, it's not going to go anywhere.
Right, because you know that. Yeah, that whole thing of what is it called? You know, where it has supersedes everything. I said it in another show. Free will.
Yeah.
And if something's not working or it's not in their belief system, their free will kick it out.
Absolutely. And we're grateful for that, right? Like we don't want
because we all want to be ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is important to be ourselves. And so when we go to faith, which is the meat of this conversation, and it's really great, is that everybody has a different perspective of what faith is. And I know you probably use, I'll talk to a client and I'll say, I'm going to use the word God and it means whatever it means to you. Or I'm going to use the word universe and it means whatever it means to you. I don't need to even have to know, or I do want to know if they want me to integrate with what we're doing.
Yes.
Right? But it's their perspective. I don't want to change anybody.
No, but I do want to work with it, because talk about grabbing leverage for getting unstuck, talk about moving forward. And the biggest thing is if it's congruent with your truth of your, you know, your purpose here on Earth School, like why are you here? What are you here to do? You know, what sort of impact are you supposed to make? It has to be congruent with that. If it's just about your personal joy and experience here on life, if you're seeking it in ways that are incongruent with your faith or your spiritual truth or your soul self, then you're not going to go anywhere. And so it's really important to me that for the work I do, that I have an understanding of that. Now, when I speak to large groups, I can't always, if there's 4,000 people in the audience, right, I can't always, you know, ask each person individually. But what I can say is that you know what that word is, whether it be God, Allah, Buddha, Jesus, the oneness, the universe, science, nature.
Right.
You know,
that's what I do. I say that too.
Right? It's all good.
Go down the list, you know, go down the list.
And it's going to grab one form. But the real faith part of it to me comes not in something outside of ourselves, but it's that part within ourselves. When we talk about having, like my big cliche, I suppose, is that when our faith is greater than our fear, we can do anything.
Ding, 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 ding. In my head, I'm thinking, we got to get to fear in all this conversation.
Yeah.
You know? Go ahead.
Yeah, that premise when we're working with people is, as I always say, you know, like everyone's going to have a different word for that, you know, and for me, that's God, but for you, it could be the universe or source or whatever that is. But that's ultimate love, right? So that is the love space, and everything in our world exists somewhere between the love space and the fear space on this spectrum. And the words that you called along that way are important when we're doing one-on-one work, but the concept really isn't important when I'm speaking to groups. And so we say, as long as we understand that there's this and the lack of this, there's love and the lack of love, and love, when we stand in love, when we are love, when we hold the space of love, then that's the place of faith. Because at any time when we say, well, I don't trust, and in my language that would be God, right? If I don't trust God to have whatever's in the highest good and interest occurring for me at this time, then that's a lack of faith. That's like saying, well, I don't think you got this, God. I don't think you're going to be able to.
I'm going to say it in a different terms, that because I have my way of saying it and you have yours, and I know they're the same, but I simply go, you can't be in fear and faith at the same time.
Absolutely.
So if you have faith, and that's, for me, that was a big lesson for me, because I grew up in Catholicism and all that kind of stuff, and no one ever taught me, trust in God, or whatever it is now. It's changed. It's all encompassing. But how can you be afraid if you have a faith in God, Allah, Buddha, whatever it is, to take care of you? So if you're fear, then you're not really having faith in what you believe, or faith within yourself, if that's what's within you to grow and change and support you.
I agree.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And here's the other thing, like, this is the part that always, for those that are, so I mean, my background, you know, I was a classroom teacher and I was a coach and I was a trainer. I've done all these things in my past, but one of the things is I was a debate coach, and I spent like 15 years coaching some of the top speakers and debaters in the country. And I used to say, you know, the one thing I learned from that experience is there's a great amount of logic in the universe. And when we talk about, there aren't a lot of things that are mutually exclusive. Most of the time there's overlap in the Venn diagram, right? But when we talk about certain things, when you said, for example, love and fear can't exist in the same space, like that, to me, that's one of those universal truths. And I also believe that I think is really the part that matters about that is that if something is truly incredibly amazing for Sandra Grace, like it is in my highest good, it's part of my purpose, is why I'm here, it absolutely can't be shitty to Michael Patrick, my son, right? So like he, my miracle baby, right, comes into this world to share life with me, and there's no way that what's really amazing for me is bad for him. Now, it may look or feel uncomfortable, right? He might not like it at the time that it's occurring, but at the end of it, if your faith is greater than your fear, you know that for whatever reason, it gets him to a place he needs to move to grow. So, you know, for example, with couples, when they're working together and they're like, oh, I really know I need to make this change or this area of growth or whatever, but they're like, I just feel like it's resistant to my wife or my husband or my partner or whatever the case may be. The answer is, if it's really in your highest good, if you've taken time for discernment, if you're really congruent with the universe, if you're really aligned with yourself, it must be best for them too. And I think that's where the real faith over fear comes in. That says like, oh, but I really don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. Oh, I love that.
The reason I pulled up this book, Dominic Reese, I guess I'm plugging you again because it's my favorite book and you've had it too. The thing is it says in there, which is totally true. Like, we, in faith, we do what we need to do, but there's a fear of not having that conversation, or how it's going to affect someone else. But we have to have the faith that maybe it negatively in their mind affects them, but they're going to then build their faith in themselves to move through it. So it's always really building faith as we move through what we need to, because we can't just, what's that word, enable or carry someone else that's afraid to move forward. And it's through those painful things that we grow and we learn and we move through and build that faith within what we believe in.
Absolutely. When we grow, I tell my clients, like, you're going to grow, and this is what's going to happen. Every single person in your life is either going to grow with you or they're going to grow apart. And it's okay, because in my language, when we change frequency, right, when we're resonating at that higher vibration of love and gratitude, you know, for some people it's like 4.76 megahertz or whatever it is,
whatever the numbers are, as we're doing well.
When you're tuned in to that love space, when you are congruent with yourself in your human form and you're divine and you're connected and you're that, all that, when you're in that space, what I know is that you'll attract that frequency. It's like tuning into radio station. Like, I'm so old school. I remember like it was static, almost got it, you know, right?
AM radio.
And love is like a frequency. And when you tune into that, then those that are listening to the same station, those are tuned in the same place you are. That faith, it just resonates throughout. And whatever happens, wherever it goes, however it flows, it feels like, all right, I can trust in this because I know that I'm congruent, and I know I'm tuned into my higher self, and I know it's all going to work together. When someone is not, then they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know what to think when that doesn't come together. So again, when we get to that fear space, if anyone who's lived in that before, anyone who's listening is like, I've been in that place.
If someone has it, could you please get a hold of me and let me know what it's like to have not a bit of fear? And it'd be a great discussion. I'd love to talk to you.
It's so amazing, right? And so, yeah, so we tune into that frequency. We just shift what we're listening to, and that faith over fear can get us so far. I've used it so many times in this lifetime, I can't even imagine. But most recently, like we talked about, I'm going to be talking Hypnotist about the brain surgeries. And, you know, I had like 6 surgeries in 2 years, 4 brain surgeries. And, you know, I'm a widow. And so, you know, here I had this son, and I would have to be like, okay, going away for surgery, baby. And, you know, I'd have to explain to him the thing, you know, I might come home and half my face saggy and baggy because, you know, that's just how it's supposed to be. Maybe I'm not coming home. Maybe I'm going to meet you on the other side, you know, right? And people would go, how did you have that discussion with your son? And I said, but here's the thing. His faith was so high. He literally said to me, you know, I'd tuck him in it and he'd go, Mama, I just don't understand why everyone's so afraid. And I said, well, because they think if I don't come back, they'll be sad or blah, blah, blah. And he says, well, but God knows you're supposed to be here to be my mom. So like, of course you're going to stay because I need you to be my mom, you know? And so like that moment of faith, that discussion of faith was like, And I thought I had faith, right? And then I hear him say that and I go, all right. All right.
I get it. We all have things going on in our lives besides this show, and we have real life going on and being a hypnotist or whatever. And I took on some projects, personal projects with people that I'm close to help them out, and I had to have faith that I would figure out. It's something new to me, and it's just personal stuff. And I had to figure out, and I went to bed exhausted, and I said, well, tomorrow's another day. I'm releasing this. Tomorrow's another day. We'll figure it out. And the next day I was doing a few things, and I started thinking out of the box, because I said, I have faith, even though I have the fear of the change and becoming someone else, being more of me in a different way. Right.
Yeah. I like it.
Right. So then I had let me think out of the box. How can I help myself, which frees me up to help others? So then I get to learn how to manage things better. I get to learn how to look at things different. And then people that have always wanted to help me or want to work with me in a different capacity, I now have the ability to learn how to manage that and let go of my fear of having control over everything.
Yeah.
Have faith that all of this, even this not so pleasing project, I get to learn from it and learn how to have more faith, knowing that that project and that person and stuff isn't the most pleasant person, but they're teaching me by being unpleasant.
Yeah.
And have faith in that, right? And how to turn it around.
Grow from the discomfort in life as much as the comfort, don't we? Or probably more.
It's amazing when we choose. Oh, you were talking about what you talked to your son about and those sorts of things. And it makes me go back to, if we have that faith, this is what brings in the fear usually. The mind brings in the fear, not the feelings, right? So I say this quite a bit is, here's the person, here's the employer, the person that's in charge of everything. This is the employee. So if I have these feelings, I don't want to hear about the fear. I want to hear about, and I woke up saying, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
How are we going to go through this? How? So it's retraining the mind at times to just go to the how. How am I going to have that conversation? Not if or should I. No, how? How are we going to do this? What's the best way? Not you can't, or, oh, who do you think you are, or what, any of that. It's retraining that employee that's been running the show for all of us for so many years, because we weren't taught to come from faith. Yeah. We are taught, let me say, we are taught in church and all of these things, but not truly how to actually do it. Or I never heard it. I never understood it in the language that they were telling me.
In the way that it was being conveyed to you at the time.
Yeah. All these years until I got out of and explored many things to go, oh, it's all the same thing. But it's in a way of learning about faith in an openness, not trying to keep you in one community or one congregation or one thing. It's more about faith in the world and the universe and God in which you believe. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think on the other side, that when we say like faith over fear, I think that the thing about fear that's really helped me when I do coaching is a little bit more like cognitive behavioral sort of things. But I'll tell people, okay, so let's take that thing that you're really afraid of, and let's literally or let's imagine that we walk right into the fear, like just whatever it is, just walk right into. You're afraid of the big lion or the tiger, walk right up to it and look it in the face. And I love that, like most of the time, it ends up being a mirage. Like once they walk right up, it goes away, whatever it is.
Look. Fear, and I say this all the time, people are going to say, oh, he's going to say that again. Fear to me is like the wall we go under, around, and over with whatever it is we're doing, drinking, eating, procrastinating, whatever it is, till we can't anymore. This fear is as thin as air or as big as the whole universe, but it really only exists in the mind.
Yes.
It's really just that. So just by piercing it a little bit, even, it's giving you more faith to pierce, to move forward, or bringing you closer to your really true belief, or that belief in yourself to do that. And it's that pain behind it that you just can't take, the pain pleasure principle. It's that pain behind it that's so much that forces you, that you have to go through it. You have to go off that water slide. You have to jump out of that airplane. You have to do all those metaphors that people give us. Yeah. And really it's just having faith in yourself, in this world, in who you are, and that uniqueness that you are is okay. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. On the rare occasion that you get face to face with your greatest fear and it's not a mirage, like there really are teeth on that tiger, then the truth is you find out that you can survive it because you just did it. And you go, well, it might not have been fun, or it might not have been easy, or I chose not to process it as fun or easy, although it could have been, but here I am on the other side of it. And I go, well, I guess I survived that. And every time we face our fears, our faith gets greater and greater and greater and greater. That's the irony, right? Is the minute we do it, the more we face it and it disappears, or the more we face it and we prevail, or we go through it or around it or over it or however we do, right? The minute we address the fear and we experience it, we go, oh.
I was checking the time because I would make sure I have time for this story. This weekend, I went out with some friends that were visiting, and we went and had a couple of drinks. And when we got out of the Uber, someone across the side street, because we were on the east side, so the west side, it's a smaller street, and then the avenue's in front, right? So we were getting out of the Uber, someone started yelling, help, help, and someone was being mugged. Oh. And these guys ran, and all of a sudden there was shooting. And there was 3 of us. One person, she ran down the street. The other person, he wanted to go after them, and I just dropped to the floor and got behind the utility metal cabinet thing that that people have in cities, yep. Where all the phone connectors are. And it was really interesting. They really were shaken. And I'm not saying everything is legitimate. Freeze, flee, and fight.
Yeah,
so
right.
My friend that was going to do fight, once he saw me drop, he dropped. He's like, what am I doing? And he dropped. And they were really shaken. It's totally understandable. What I was really surprised about is I wasn't. It was like, okay, so that's my shooting incident for America in 2019. And we're all okay. And I faced something that was a little bit, but I knew in that moment after it was all over that I know how to take care of myself instinctively.
Yes.
And they knew how to take care of what's best. All of us were correct.
Yeah.
And that we're okay. Instead of making all that drama, which goes into fear, let's say, look, we're good. And move into faith. Now we have that out of the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
we have it out of the way, and we get to move forward, much like surgeries or anything else. We've been through it. Now let's move on. Let's not keep rewriting and keep putting on, because there's some people that will talk about it for weeks and months.
Yes.
And years. How about let's learn how to process it in faith in a different way? And I'm not saying anybody's way of processing is any better than others. I know that for me, I'm being able to move on with my days a lot better because I said, okay, it's all good. What did I learn? And let's move forward in that faith.
Well, and I think the real answer comes down to if whatever method that you're currently using serves you, well, then stick with it. But if you're listening to this program, the whole foundation of this program is about getting unstuck, which means that up until now, whatever you're doing is no longer serving you. You want to gain leverage and move forward, right? So this program is about growth. It's about becoming unstuck. It's about moving forward. And in that case, the faith over fear is really powerful because when you have an experience like yours, it gives you a chance to say, okay, awesome. Glad to know that my instincts are alive and well and that I'm doing what I need to do to move forward. And again, it's just a perfect example of what we said. Something happens, we face those fears, and then we have more faith than ever before. And so each time the universe brings you an opportunity to grow in your faith, instead of allowing that to be another sticking point, you could instead use it as an opportunity to say, okay, thank you for reminding me that I want to continue to grow. And this was a great opportunity to show me I can practice this, I can live it, and I can grow from it.
Exactly. I had a thought too in that we were talking about that everybody's process is valid and all that kind of stuff. And I want to say, because you were mentioning about the program, is that I always say we're not saying anything unique or new in this world. It's all out there. But maybe someone's going to hear it the way you say it or the way I say it, or in the right moment for them to retain or ready to hear, because we've all heard these things. And I've heard many a time some things that 10 years later I go, that's new. And someone said, I told you that 10 years ago, but we weren't ready to hear it.
Yeah.
So that's what this show for me is about, to talk to someone like you, to say it in our own language and have a conversation and that sort of thing. Ooh, our timer. Our timers, that means our time's up, Is there anything else that you wanted to say in just a few seconds about faith and what or did we cover it for today?
Well, I did want to talk about one brief thing. Every once in a while, I run into a client, and when I ask that question, what do you know that you know is true? Like, what is your understanding of the world? What is your spiritual truth? And they'll say, I really don't know. I have no idea. And I'll notice that usually those are the people that are struggling with both anxiety and depression. Those are people that have parts of them stuck in the past, parts that are stuck in anticipating the future. So I think that if you haven't had a chance to really look into your truth and discover your faith, I think finding a coach or or someone to talk to help you explore that, and not necessarily to drive you in a particular direction, but just to help you gain an understanding of that is so important, because without that, you can live a life of a pretty strong flux, and that will keep you stuck for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
So I really feel like that we hadn't really talked about that, but I think there are times in which
that might be another show. I might get you,
yeah,
about that too.
Any chance to hang out with you, I'd say yes.
You. But what's really important now, because we're at the end of the show, is how can people get a hold of you if they resonate with you and want to do some work with you, or have you come in to teach their school or their class or their office or whatever? How do they reach you?
Thank you, Greg. So my company is called Integrative LifeWorks Incorporated. Integrative LifeWorks, crazy long, Incorporated. We're
gonna put it below too.
Oh,
they're
cool.
gonna get all that.
Yeah, just go to Integrative LifeWorks Inc. and you'll on the website you'll see there's a page for the corporate training. There's a page for I do energy. I train people in energy work. I train hypnotists. I work with besthypnosistraining.com and Paul Ramsey in that. I also do a project called Align with Love, where I work with Nicholas Spone, and we train people on becoming congruent energetically and spiritually. And then I do all my own work, everything from the coaching to the training. I train massage therapists and reflexologists.
What she's saying is I'm jumping on her on purpose. She's a busy woman.
I got a lot of fun stuff.
So go to that what's down below.
Training. Yeah.
So go to what's down below that they're going to put up, and you can find me on Facebook or Greg at hypnosisla.com. I want to thank HypnoThoughts Live 2019 for sponsoring us, and keep tuning in. There's going to be a lot of cool people on this Hypnosis 24/7 network, Hypno 24/7 network, and thanks, Sandra. And again, everything's going to be down below, and see you in another episode. Thank you again.